Welcome to the Condor DM Show. Tonight, I'm covering Alternity, one of the last products the TSR company put out uh, before it totally stopped functioning. Watsi had already purchased TSR, but they were still acting as an individual company, even though they were already purchased, and Alternity was one of their last products. It's a sci-fi game that TSR brought out, a very interesting one, still sort of based on AD&D, more like second edition, but very interesting game. A cool game. Had a step system, like bonus versus penalty dice. Uh, it had a skill system. Skill really defined your character. You take a profession, not a class, but skills would really define who your character was. I would say, specializing in skills was always more important for gameplay, because if you took a lot of baseline skills without specialization, good chance you'll fail them more often than the other way around. Like specializing in skills in this game is more effective for a character because you're going to succeed more than not. And succeed, there's like a baseline for that, right? Good to amazing. Amazing would be like standout success right there. Combat had a sort of damage thing where it'd be like a stun, wound, mortal. Now, damage would actually affect your character in combat for real. Mortal was the type of damage you don't want to take. That's deadly damage. That's hey, Craig. Hey, Monkey. How you guys doing? Glad you're here. This one's going to be a good one. Though I would say Alternity is not a game you could just jump in and go. I spent slightly over a year running this one. I tried it for like 3 months in what I would call a campaign that I ended because I realized going into it, man, I had to learn. I had to learn for the first 3 months really had to become good at game mastering it and then find the right players. I have players, coming into Alternity and dropping out, and you had to find players that were just not going to half-ass and could learn the game. Because as far as I'm concerned, a lot of games you can half-ass and sort of get by. Alternity is a game that could just die if you don't have players that know what they're doing. So you can't. It's not a beginner's game. You got to have players that sort of get what they're doing, and then you got to have a game master that sort of gets it. Because you get the things like combat and Alternity, and it can be a game killer. You got modifier stacking. You got action phases. You got just things where it was a smooth combat. It was never going to be perfectly smooth, but for you to get the best out of it, you had to have the players that knew what they were doing. And yet, as a game master, I had to watch people, like I had to talk to people out of the stacking of modifiers because it could just slow the game down. So you trim it just a bit, right? And the more you trim it, the more you do that, the smoother the game could go, especially in the area of combat. There was like 2 ways of playing the game. There were like the star thing would be like, just 2 alternative ways of actually experiencing the game, right? When it comes to setting stuff, right? But yeah, I ran it for slightly over a year. I did it for like the first 3 months was just learning and then finding the right players. And then going from there was a lot of games outside of D&D where, oh wow, really, Craig? It's just one of the last games that TSR brought out. A lot of people I've actually haven't heard about this game. It's just a lot of games outside of D&D, Dungeons and Dragons, if you wanted to have whatever they call the good experience with it, you had to make sure people that were, how can I say, careless players, don't pay attention. The game is going to suck for them. Like a lot of games where you got to get players that pay attention. You got to get players that just simply care, about this whole thing we call tabletop role-playing games. They had to take it serious. You had to have a game master that took it serious and really understood their job, right? So skills was a big focus in the game. I found that if you spread yourself too thin, trying to get as many as you could without specializing, you could fail a lot. So then that becomes less effective. You wanted people to specialize in their skills. Stacking modifiers, adding up modifiers on rolls, that could be good, but it could also harm the experience of playing the game. And for this game to go well, it was not just a jump in and play game. Like it's not. Alternity is not a jump in and play game. It's a game where the game master has to learn. So you sort of got to be honest with people up front. Like as soon as you figure out, you just can't just run it smoothly because there's going to be bumps in the road. You got to go, okay, that's where you're at, and you got to be honest with yourself and honest with the people you run the game for. And then you got to find players again that are going to learn the game with you. It's a team sport, like in many ways. All tabletop role-playing games are, but for an Alternity game to go well, it had to be a team sport. It had to be everyone's on board. Players are willing to go through the bumps, learning the game, but they learn because they care and they pay attention. They don't half-ass. They don't. If there's an issue, they improve, right? So if they see that there's an issue with something they're doing, they improve. Players who didn't improve probably likely were not good for the game. Like, not a lot of games, again, you can half-ass your way through them and get whatever experience you want out of them. But if you want to go with what the designer is trying to get out of it, you had to get people that were simply going to improve by paying attention and caring. Simple as that. That's what a lot of tabletop role-playing games outside of D&D expected of you. Now, Dungeons and Dragons, it wasn't like that didn't expect that of you, but it was more loose, old school. So, you could sort of get by. Better players could have a better time. Better players could carry weaker players. But, back in the day when I started in 1987 as a young person, a lot of complaints I heard were the type of people that were coming into the hobby that would half-ass. People were just sort of elite about it. It was like, if you're like this, we don't need you in the hobby. There's my kitten. Go. But yeah, it's like if you are someone that half-assed, a lot of people back in the day knew that was harmful for what they're doing. So if you meet a player that was really trying really hard and they're having a good time based on their effort and everything else, they would see a player come in with them that was not paying attention, and they know they got to carry that player. Like, in a way, even in Dungeons and Dragons, your better players are really playing the game. The guys that are sort of half with you, they're just sort of getting to have a decent experience by letting better players do the real work in the game. And every so often, they might stick their heads out and say something smart, but it just wasn't that often. But you can get away with that in D&D. In a game like Alternity, you got to have every player on blast, because if one player is half-assing, as close as you can get to smooth combat, they would kill it. And combat was never really smooth to begin with. It was always going to be in steps, right? Action phases. There was an initiative system. It was like a check system. I guess trying to be more dynamic, right? Realistic about the order you go in, but it wasn't like a clean order of initiative. So Alternity is just one of those games where you just got to have everyone on board caring. It's a team sport. So you could be good at game mastering Alternity, but if you get players that are still learning the game, that's going to be rough sessions. They got to learn. There's no way to get around it, right? And then as a game master, another thing you got to pay attention to is informing players about how the skill system works. So you want them to know that a lot of loose skills without specialization are going to fail, a fair amount of times in the game. And then you want to tell them about how modifiers work. Like if you keep stacking modifiers, with action phases and the other things, it's going to slow down the game. It really is. And it's not like a simple pass and fail system for skills. You got a baseline. Amazing would be like a standout outcome. That's what you're really looking for in almost every situation. But specializing meant more often that skill would pass for you. And it's so important that you knew this, because skills really make who your character is. It's not like a class system. Even comparing the professions to a class becomes a waste of time, because really what you're doing is looking at what skills you choose. Like the profession you choose really decides the direction you're going to go with the character. And then you got skills to really tell you who the character is. So that's what I learned over the first 3 months. And then I ran a pretty good campaign of it for a little over a year, a long one. And then that was it. That's my experience with the game. Because I did so much gaming that when I would leave side games after having a great experience with them, unlike Dungeons and Dragons, I didn't go back to a lot, right? And this is one, Alternity is one where I just never played it. I just ran it. Because when it first came out, I just couldn't find anybody that was actually wanting to run the game. So I was like, well, screw it. I find it interesting. It's sci-fi. It's still TSR to a degree with WotC taking over. Sure, I'll run this thing. Why not? But yeah, I jumped in realizing this is no tunnels and trolls. It's a game where I had to bump through for 3 months just getting myself good at the game. And then finding players that were good as far as the caring ones, and then just bumping out people that were Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That's I don't bother with the newer stuff. This year I'm covering old school on this channel. So when I say old school, I'm covering right up to about the year 2000, and I focus on Alternity, the old school version, because that's what I ran. Right. So I don't talk about games that I haven't either played or ran. And I played and ran quite a few back in the old school. There's still some games I know in the old school that people are asking why I'm not, like, you're covering old school, why aren't you covering this? I'm like, well, I didn't play or run that, so I don't have an opinion. And even the ones I played in, because I was a well experienced game master, I would learn the game mastering side of it anyway, right? So every time I played in a game, the game master always took me serious as a fellow game master. I always made sure I learned this stuff, not to alter or cheat the game, but it was actually to help out the game master I was playing the game with, right? Like, so I'm playing for you. I want to make sure this goes well. Yeah, the Kickstarter stuff now. Honestly, between me and you, no 21546 or no, I didn't even know there was a Kickstarter on a new version. Like, I'm so busy with YouTube and other things in life that I'll get, like, I hear about this stuff. Like, they got a new Traveler game out. I'm like, well, I only know old school Traveler, so that's all I know. I know some of the additions for some games, like that came out more in the vein of old school. And I have been trying some new school stuff, but even new school to me is everything past year 2000, but it's not like up to date. Like, I'm not like the newer stuff out in the like last 15 years. I know some of it just from hearing about it, but I just don't pay attention to a lot. Oh, well, that's awesome. I'm always glad to have someone experienced come along, because then I can have someone here to verify. Steven knows what the fuck he's talking about. I do, because I ran the game. No, it's really learning. You just got to learn things. You bump it, too many modifiers, all this type of stuff. You just got to learn that is going to slow the game down. And when you start, the idea of just running into smooth combat is almost impossible. You got to learn it, and you got to get players. It's a team sport. And know, if you're a dedicated person, you'll know what I mean. It's a team sport. This is more of a team sport than, say, D&D, where you could be good at game mastering it, but if you got 2 or 3 new players that just are not picking up on it fast, those sessions just on that can slow down. You can help a bit by getting some of the modifiers trimmed, communicating with players up front, really trying to get the game to where you want it to as quick as you can. And then you got to hope you're picking up players that care and pay attention. Because if you get players that are half-assed in a game like this, that are just like, oh, they sort of paid attention, but the next time they come with the same problem, that's an issue. Because in Alternity, a problem is a problem, right? So when there's a problem, that you have to improve from that. If not, you're at the baseline of still screwing up. It's almost like you're still trying to get where you want to go with the game, right? It's like you come back with the problem again. It's like, dude, I need you to pay attention, because I need you to know this stuff the way it is. One of the fans even made an online character creation site based on D&D Beyond. Yeah, there's a lot of games where I'm happy that I'm covering all these different games, because there are fans big time on many games, many old school games, especially Alternity, because it's sci-fi. And I knew when I was trying it, it was going to be a big thing, because a lot of people want sci-fi games. They do. It's not the majority. I would still say the expectations and standards set by D&D for closer to medieval is going to be what you get the majority leaning into, right? That's going to be the more popular. But there is a baseline of Star Wars people, Star Trek people, you know what I mean, that are going to love these things. I did a Star Drive, and Dark Matter was the first one. Dark Matter is more like paranoia and secret. Like, I had to, when I jumped over to the new campaign doing Star Drive, I was like, oh, well, I'm glad I know how to run the game, but this is different. And the players felt that way too. Like, it's like we're playing a different game, dude. It's the same, but understand the game was good, but it was like playing a different game. Like, that's what you sort of learn. It's like you feel like you're having a completely different experience, because you go from learning the game and you're doing one thing with Dark Matter, then you jump over to Starfinder and you're like, well, I'm glad we know how to do this, but this is definitely a different experience. Yeah, well, that's Yes, Star Drive was what the people preferred. When I started my campaign with Star Drive, that's what they liked more than the dark matter that we tried. But if you're a fan, will know this. Dark matter is sort of like playing a different game. It's like the stuff you learn is good. It's going to help you, but Starfinder is a different experience. Yeah, no, it's good to communicate up front. It is, but you still got to just get players to adapt. Like, you know what I mean? If you take a new player, it's just not instant with this game. But if the player cares and they're willing, if they find a place where they're like starting boom and you talk to them, you can get rid of some bumps. And then once they get into the game, they got to know that the game is not just roll dice and go. The game is really on you to play smart. And smart play is definitely rewarded in this game, right? And it is expecting positioning and everything else. And the way you come in the game is so important, right? If you're just going in like it's a simple game of dice roll, oh, I succeed, I win, you've landed in the wrong game. I need you to think. I need you to be prepared for what's coming at you. And then, in combat, especially like you're talking there, it's so many things are combined that you just need I find stacking modifiers, it can sometimes be a pain in the ass. If you trim some of that, you can start speeding things up. And as long as players know the action phase and they know the sort of initiative system, like they understand that, you can get close to smooth, right? Pretty close to as smooth as you can get with that combat. But it is like stun, wound, and it's like the damage can affect your character. So they got to understand that mortal damage is what they say. It's mortal. It's not good. It's type of damage you wish to avoid in the game, right? But yeah, all right. I think we're done explaining some of the basics up front. I'm ready to jump right into this. So let's jump in. Influences and birth of Alternity. The core idea. TSR tries to modernize sci-fi RPGs. Late 90s, TSR in a weird spot. Advanced Dungeons & Dragons 2nd Edition still exist, but the market is shifting. Players want more modern systems, more flexibility, cleaner mechanics. Alternity is TSR's attempt to build a modern, universal sci-fi system, compete in the changing RPG landscape. That's how the market felt at the time. My research tells me, right? This was if you see what their staff says, this is what they think, right? Yes, no, death does come fast and easy for careless players who don't really take the game. You got to take this game serious. System influences, moving away from old D&D design. TSR knew Think-Go-era design was aging. So Alternity pulls away from class, like a rigid class system, heavy legacy mechanics. Instead, it leans into skill-based resolution. Like I said, skills are very important. Modular design, scalable difficulty. The big mechanic influence, degree-based success system. Degree-based success system. Instead of pass and fail, you get ordinary, good, amazing. Amazing is standout. Ordinary is like baseline, right? This becomes a defining feature of the game. Influence from skill-based RPGs. Alternity clearly takes cues from games like Traveler, Ruin Quest. Key influence. Skills matter more than classes. Skills define who your character is. Characters defined by capability, not archetype. So they're more defined by what they can do and less by a label, right? Late 90s design trends. This is important. By the late 90s, RPGs are experimenting with flexibility, realism, system clarity. You also have rising competition from GURPS. Alternity is TSR saying, we can do a flexible system too. Genre influence. Broad sci-fi, not just one style. Unlike many games, it's not locked into one setting. It pulls from space opera, hard sci-fi, cyberpunk, alien horror, designed to support multiple tones and multiple worlds, as we were talking about there with Dark Matter and Star Drive, right? The setting strategy. Instead of one core setting, TSR built a system first, settings second. Key setting included Star Drive, space opera. Dark Matter, modern conspiracy, X-Files style. That's where I say, when we started with Dark Matter, you go into Star Drive and you're like, whoa, what's going on here? This is two different games, right? This was forward thinking at the time. This is what they thought was forward thinking. One system, multiple genres. Well, they thought many people would want to come at this in multiple different ways. So why put it down to like one line? Why not just open it up where you could freely come at the sci-fi games in this in multiple different ways, depending on what your influence is, right? The timing, right before the collapse, here's the reality. Alternity launches in 1998. Like I said, I cover right up to around the year 2000, just before Wizards of the Coast acquisition of TSR fully reshapes the company. Result, short lifespan, gets overshadowed by Dungeons and Dragons 3rd edition that came out in 2000. It did. Doesn't matter what you think of 3rd edition, nor am I promoting. I'm just saying it does get overshadowed. I used it to run a Wasteland campaign based on Wasteland 1988 computer games. Well, it's made for you. It's TSR in a way. There is a TSR gimmick to it where it does make itself where you can lend it to your own ideas, just like Dungeons and Dragons, right? Some games out there just not the case. They are raw rules as written. You go with the setting. It's like Pendragon. Really hard to just take Pendragon all over the place. Or like the Castle Falkenstein that I covered the other night. They're set up for what they're set up for. The big swing. TSR tried to reinvent itself, build a modern system, compete with evolving RPG design. Alternity, one of the last major original systems TSR put out, a bridge between old school TSR design, modern RPG thinking. So what they've seen in other games. They were obviously looking at the landscape and they're trying to make more money, be more successful. Alternity wasn't just another sci-fi RPG. It was TSR trying to prove it could still innovate before the industry moved on without it. WotC bought them out. WotC sort of drops the whole TSR gimmick at that point after, like, by the time 3rd edition is coming out. So that is, that covers the birth of the game and the influences behind it. Now I cover a bunch of different games, and to get you guys used to, it took me a while experimenting with these streams to really get where I wanted to make this fun. I have a system. I'll give you a system for how I cover all games. So, you know, I know I'm covering a variety, so I cover them in a similar way. I'll give you guys a real quick rundown of this. I always start now with influences and birth of the game. Then I go into how to run the game, which I'm going to go into now in a moment. Then we go into character creation, and then we go into setting. And then we go into like what it does different and better. And then criticisms versus defenses, like of like fans like know of the game. And then stuff I think is worth mentioning. That's where I finish off the stream at least for the stuff I'm covering. After that, I go into like, you know, I do the first 10 minutes, you guys, without doing this stuff. It's to give you time to get here. So I'm not just diving into this stuff. You have time to get here, get settled in. And I can sort of give you a little bit of a rundown. And then after this, we can talk pretty freely, right? I'm going to be off whatever you want to call a script here. So how to run Alternity. First rule, this is a system game. Unlike narrative first games, this runs closer to Traveler. I love Traveler. GURPS, you are expected to use mechanics, lean on the system, apply structure, core engine, roll under, then modify, where I said the modifiers can affect the pace of the game and what you're doing. But there's a reason why players go after the modifiers the way they do. Roll under, then modify. The backbone, roll a d20. Try to get under your skills to score, but difficulty is handed with you with the step modifiers, right? That could be penalty dice. Easier, you know, is bonus dice, reduce results. Harder, penalty dice, increase results. This is the heart of the system. Degrees of success. This drives everything. Every roll isn't just pass or fail. Ordinary equals basic success. Good equals strong result. Amazing equals best possible result. As GM, you must interpret these results. Don't just say you succeed. So when they succeed well, what does that mean? And so you have to have an idea in your head of what, really good success is. You don't just say succeed, you say what it means, like you describe success to them. Combat, tactical and structured. This is not light or narrative combat. You got action phases, weapons with different damage types, armor interaction, positioning. Combat expects attention to rules by everyone, clear adjudication from the game master. Damage system. One of the big things here, damage is split into stunned, wound, and mortal. This matters because characters degrade over time. Combat gets dangerous fast, as Noah was saying. You can die quickly. If you run this loosely, you break the tension combat is meant to bring to the game. It's meant to be something. It's not fair fights. Combat is diddly, just sort of like old school D&D. It's something you actually want to avoid more than just get in. It's not like 3rd edition or WotC gaming. You don't want to just run at combat like this. It's just not that. Skill use is constant. Everything runs through skills, combat, tech, social, investigation. As a game master, you call for rolls often, but not mindlessly. Good play. Only roll when it matters. Let skills define outcomes. Very important. As a game master, to let these things flow the way they're meant to. Setting flexibility. You pick the tone. Alternity is locked into one field. You can run space opera, or Alternity isn't locked into one field. You can run space opera, Star Drive, or conspiracy horror, dark matter. Again, this is what I learned. It felt like different games. You could at least understand the rules and how to play helps. It really does, no matter which one you're going at. But both just feel like two different games. Hard sci-fi. So you can run space opera, conspiracy, or hard sci-fi, which is going towards what Monkey says, which is saying hard sci-fi is like you can lean out and do your own thing, right? Your job, pick a tone and then stay consistent on that tone. Don't try to run 3 different types. Just pick one and go. Game master role, referee plus interpreter. You are a rules enforcer, a difficulty judge, a result interpreter. Results are so important to get them right. You're not just succeed, you're explaining what success is, especially with step modifiers, degrees of success. This game expects fair rulings, consistent calls. And if you're not doing fair rulings, you lose the trust of good players really quick. And consistency, of course, that's true for a lot of games, right? Consistent calls. Pacing, balance, crunch, and flow. So there's a lot to this game, the stack modifiers and everything, and that can affect flow of the game. So this is what this area I'm talking about: pacing, balance, crunch, and flow to get, like, you got to balance them. This is where people mess up. Too slow, game drags. Too loose, system loses meaning. You need to keep things moving, but respect the mechanics. The mechanics are the game. You can't just step over them. So you look at how can we make them work as smoothly as possible. That's where I said you want to trim off some of the modifiers as much as you can to keep things as smooth as you can. Common mistakes. 1, ignoring step modifiers. This is the core mechanic. If you don't use it properly, the system collapses. True for what it is, for what the designer intends. Treating it like D&D. Wrong assumptions about combat, balance, and progression. It's a different game. 3, skipping degrees of success. Turning it into pass or fail. Like, oh, you pass or you fail. No. You got to be able to describe what it means when they pass or fail in this game. It's how it works. It removes what makes it unique for the player, especially. So, as a game master, for the players to have a good time in this is to really understand what it means when they succeed, to really have it explained to them. They don't go to ask questions. You're going to clarify what success means. 4, overcomplicating every roll. Too many modifiers, too much math. The game already has so many steps. So if you're stuck in math, it slows the game to a crawl. This is true. I had to learn that in my first run with this. What good Alternity feels like when run well. Rolls feel meaningful, right? So you're given all the details. Combat feels dangerous because you're going as smooth as you can, but you know how dangerous combat is. It's not meant to be fair or balanced. It's meant to be very dangerous, and you can die easily. Skills feel important. If you convince your players to specialize in a good number, like in their skills or skills they're using, it's going to succeed more often than not. But if you're spreading thin and not specializing, you can find yourself failing quite often. But skills feel important. Outcomes have nuance. That means, again, back to the role of success. What does that mean? There's details in there, important. It becomes tactical, flexible, system-driven. Alternity works when you respect the system. Ignore it, and you might as well be running something else away from what. This is true for a lot of games. You can somewhat ignorantly get away with running a lot of games incorrectly, like Cyberpunk and shit like this. But you're not getting what the designer has intended for the game. Okay. Now we move on to character creation. Important part. It's important part. Character creation. Alternity. First rule. This is skill-based, not class-based. Not fully freeform. Alternity sits in the middle ground. Not like Dungeons and Dragons, hard classes. Not fully open like GURPS. It uses professions, light structure. Skills, real core of the character. Step 1, pick a profession. Your starting framework. That's like a starting framework. Core profession includes combat spec, diplomat, free agent, tech op. Important. These are not strict classes. They guide skill access. So what you can access. They like the starting focus of the character. Think direction, not restriction. So it's not about what it's taking you away from. It's what it's opening you up to. That's as a player, you want to focus on what are you now able to access because this is the profession you've chosen, right? Step 2, attributes matter a lot. You got broad attributes like strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, will, personality. These set your base capabilities, directly impact skills. If you mess this up, your character struggles everywhere. Oh yeah, and even the having everybody understand the game and needing to learn the game, it is like Rolemaster in that way too, because Rolemaster can be a mess with a game master that's sort of figuring it out, doesn't have all their things lined up and ready to go, and you got to learn that chart master. You get all your charts lined up where you can have ease of access to things. You learn that first, and then you got to get players that learn the game with you. Because the players need to know what's going on, just like the person running the game. Then you get what Role Master is meant to be especially on your good nights, right? Step 3, skills are the real build. This is where the character actually comes together. You assign points into broad skills, specialty skills. So where you spend these points is the specialty skills is where you really want to focus. Example, structure, skill, general ability, specialty, focused expertise. This creates customization, flexibility, a real difference, between the characters. This is what creates the difference between each character, right? Like it's how the character is different. It's based on where you focus your points on skills. Again, specialty skills is where you want to put a lot of focus, right? Step 4, skill points are limited. Decisions matter. You cannot be good at everything. This is so true. You must choose what your character is good at and what they are not good at. This creates niche protection and party roles. Step 5 in character creation, broad competence versus specialization. You got 2 paths. Generalist, decent at many things. Flexible, true. Might fail more. Specialist, strong in key areas, weak elsewhere, but focus less on your weakness and more on your strength is a personal opinion I'll throw in there. The system supports, but rewards specialization in critical moments. So the system supports both, but really it's going to reward you more in your specialized areas in the very important moments of the game that count to you. Trust me, you'll know what that means once you're playing the game. Step 6, combat capability is not guaranteed. Important difference. Not everyone is combat effective. So true. If you don't invest in combat skills, physical attributes, you will struggle in fights. This reinforces role diversity, not combat importance. Remember, it's not like games where you're meant to be running around getting into all kinds of fights anyway. So avoiding combat's good. Step 7, setting influences build. Optional but real. Depending on the setting, star drives, space rolls, dark matter, modern conspiracy rolls. Your character should fit the tone, fit the world. So you can build all kinds of different characters, but you should really have an understanding. And I made sure to communicate really as well as I could the settings to the players, even though they were getting in going, this is a different game. They felt like they didn't feel like ripped off. Like I read it, I explained to them this is going to be different. So your characters should be more tailored towards what this is, because this is the gameplay you're facing, right? Step 8, perks and flaws. Optional flavor plus mechanics. You can add advantages and disadvantages. These customize the character further, add depth. Not always required, but good players will use them. And honestly, in this game, if you don't have good players, so it's actually an optional thing I personally put in, because I felt like I really found a group of good players when I ran what I call my full campaign on this. Common mistakes. Spreading skills too thin. Trying to do everything. Not good for this game. Result, weak character overall. Ignoring core skills. Missing the key abilities for the campaign. Result, useless in important moments. This is about understanding the setting, understanding what you're going to be facing, so you have chosen skills and that really go towards the gameplay that you're going to encounter. Common mistakes. Number 3, building for combat only. Over investing in fighting. Result, weak in investigation, social, and tech. These areas are important to the game. They genuinely are, like for real. So, it's one thing to have one player make it a character that might really focus on combat, but it's not something every character should be doing. No way. Number 4, treating professions like classes. Don't worry about that label. This is a different game. Playing too rigid misses flexibility. What good characters look like. Strong Alternity characters have a clear role, have defined strengths, have real weaknesses. You allow weaknesses so you can take on certain things instead of trying to stretch things out. They feel capable, grounded, useful in specific situations. Very important. It's okay to be that way in this game. In Alternity, your character isn't defined by a class. It's defined by the choices you make with your skills. So that's really important. Again, back to skills being important to define who your character is. That's character creation. And remember, for anyone new who comes here, especially with some of the new subs I have, I want you guys to really understand how this goes. I'm doing an overview of stuff. So I don't go into the book and say, this is exactly what you do to make a character. I'm selling it to you. What I promise is the overview is real. So the feel and everything, and anyone who's experienced, like we have a guy here who's experienced this game, will be able to say, yeah, he's not wrong. And what I'm selling you is not wrong, right? What I'm telling you is all good information. It's actually good to take to character creation, but I don't go through step by step. Some other people do that with games. I personally don't. I do an overview of everything. It's promoting old school gaming to you. That's what I'm doing. But I'm trying to give you as honest of a take on it as I can, and anyone who's a fan of the game I'm covering will usually be able to relate the thing I'm talking about, right? That's why when I covered Castle Falkenstein the other day, I knew that was unique, but it's not for a lot of people. It's going to be the one game where I'm going to have a hard time with the idea of selling it to you, but I can give you the overview. But the overview will tell you just how hard the game is. In many ways, that game is light mechanics, but just hard on actually running it and playing the game, because it's all based on social interaction, but it's like rules. It's like drama class with mechanics, right? Or with rules. So it might be easier on actors who train to do that. To get the everyday person into a game like that, it can be hard. So you got to find people that care about that type of thing. But back here, we're going to cover now onto the settings. The settings of Alternity. The core idea, system first, settings second. Settings second. Alternity was built as a universal sci-fi system. Going back to what Monkey was talking about, using it for something else. Yep, you can do that. Yep. But that's a cool thing about it, right? That you can just use it for something else. It's fucking wild that way. It's just a good system, right? And in certain ways. So universal sci-fi system. Not one locked-in world. So like games like Pendragon and that, you're more locked into the type of thing they're trying to push you at. This is not the case. Or like Cyberpunk, more locked into a specific thing. So not locked into one world, right? Instead, TSR created multiple settings to show what it can do, just to show the freedom. This is a big design shift compared to single setting games. Main setting, and this is true, that's why we went at it, Star Drive. This is the flagship. What it is, space opera, galactic civilization, multiple alien species, political factions. The core elements, stellar nations and alliances, alien races, integrated into society, exploration and expansion, conflict between factions. Very important. Tone, classic sci-fi adventure, flexible between action, politics, exploration. Why it matters? This is where most people actually experience Alternity. Starfinder is what the majority that I've encountered have played. Oh yeah. No doubt. I've heard of other people having all kinds of homebrewed stuff too, because you could do that. That was the point of the system. It was made to be used on different things. Again, we go back to Monkey. But yes, no, I've heard of there was like multiple official things put out. The ones I encountered back in the actual time when I did this is Dark Matter and Starfinder, right? All right, the second big setting, Dark Matter. That's the one I started out with. This one flips the tone completely. What it is, modern day Earth, conspiracy driven, hidden supernatural elements. Think X-Files, secret agencies, alien cover-ups, occult mysteries. I actually like Dark Matter. I just didn't give it a full campaign after learning the game. It's something I thought about going back to because I think it actually is cool. Like I actually like, that's why I started with Dark Matter over Starfinder. A lot of people like Starfinder. I actually like the X-Files, secret agencies, alien cover-ups. Like I love that stuff. That's why I hit Dark Matter first, right? Tone, investigation, suspense, paranoia. Why it stands out. Very different from Star Drive. Very true. Shows how flexible the system is, and it really is. This is one thing. This is one reason I don't know why Alternity didn't get more play time. Because second edition, what a lot of people don't know is even after third edition came out, second edition online and in person were still half the games being ran. If you went into any platform where there were games, it'd be third edition and second edition. So it wasn't like TSR didn't put out a game that didn't compete. Second edition might have been late in the TSR era, but it actually stayed being played pretty lively, right? Half the games you'd see, like it competed with third edition for real for a long time. There's also a standalone version of Gamma World that used Alternity, and there was a box for StarCraft using. I love the I love the video game, the old part StarCraft and part 1 and part 2. I love StarCraft, so not surprised at all, right? The popularity of that makes sense, right? And Gamma World, of course. I love fucking Gamma World. Love Gamma World. Okay. Other supported styles, less formal but important. Alternity was built to handle hard sci-fi, cyberpunk, exploration campaigns, military sci-fi. It doesn't lock you in. You choose the tone and you build the world. This is why you could just make either your own stuff, or as a fan of this game is talking about all the other things that started coming out for it. Because it's made to be expanded. A lot of people just, it's a secret that it's a gem. It's a gem that just got missed. Oh, and there's Black Rose getting here. Hey, Black Rose. We're just going through the setting right now, my friend. Or the settings. What am I saying? You'll definitely, when you get a chance. This one, Black Rose, if you've already heard it, you'd be like, I could sell this game to you. I could sell this game to you. I've already sold this. I guarantee if you watch it later, you'll be like, oh shit, I got to try that. Craig likes some sci-fi stuff. I know he's sitting back and relaxing, but I hope Craig is enjoying this, because if he hasn't tried Alternity, this is something he should take a look at for real. Like sci-fi, not medieval. And it's beautiful because it's made to be expanded. It's a shame it just never got the heat that it should have got. Like heat in a good way, like attention. What all settings share, no matter what you run, skill, and see, this is where the system works well, right? The system works well for all these things, right? What all settings share, no matter what you run, skill-based play, degree-based success, dangerous combat, real consequences. The system creates consistency. The settings create the flavor. So it's just a great system to put with multiple views of sci-fi. StarCraft, like the fan here, Mr. Noah, is talking about. Definitely. Oh, no, I totally get that. Yep. I'm glad you showed up just to say hi, my friend. I appreciate that. You know I do. Love you. Thank you very much for that. Oh, the dark matter thing. You should go investigate that, Craig, for sure. Dark matter was awesome. Though I get where no comes from. And I actually like Star. I don't want to say the other options weren't good, right? Star Drive was good. Legit good. Ran a long campaign with it. But I do like X-Files and, secret stuff. Like I love that stuff. So it was really appealing to me. I just never got, after I learned the game, I never went back and just ran a proper campaign with it. But I'm getting myself hyped by covering it now. You guys know how I do that to myself. I get hyped by my own stuff here. It's crazy. Strength of the setting approach. Fans like this because one system equals many experiences. I guarantee that's going to be true for No, because he's talking about already these different things. So he gets it. Like I said, fans like this is what I research. Fans like this because one system equals many experiences. Easy to switch genres. Supports creative game masters. That's why I like running this game, right? You're not stuck in one world with one tone. See, you have a system. The system is not built before the setting. So it's not built exactly for the setting. It's just built so you can then create the setting and tone and then have a credible system to put with the setting and tone, right? Strength of the setting approach, and that's what I just covered. Sorry. Where it can struggle, let's be real. No single iconic setting dominates. Some players want one strong identity. Instead, they get options. Result, less brand recognition than focus games. This is important because I think this is where it might have struggled. A lot of games, they're hyped because of the setting they're attached to. Right? And like guys like No, that was here talking, he'll get exactly what I mean. He's like, I don't get why this game didn't have more hype. It's probably because it was so open like this, right? That it just didn't get connected to one thing and sold that well. Most RPGs build a system around a setting. Alternity build settings around a system. Alternity doesn't give you one world to explore. It gives you a system to build any sci-fi world you want, which they thought would be more appealing to their own people, right? Because look, D&D is about home brewing and making your own stuff. So instead of setting it to one setting, they went back to the old TSR roots of going, here we'll give you a system that can handle all kinds of alternative views of sci-fi. You make the world, here, go at it, right? So that's the settings. So now we're going to talk about like what makes it different, what makes it better. Okay. Degrees of success that actually matter. Most RPGs pass, fail, maybe crits. Alternity, ordinary, good, amazing. Just layers, right? And these aren't just labels. You're expected to interpret them as a game master. Change outcomes meaningfully, right? Why fans love it. More nuance in most systems. Results feel less binary, less like, oh, you succeeded. Okay, that's it. I roll the dice. Encourages better GM ruling because it's going to expect the GM to have to explain this stuff. So as you get used to it, you improve your thinking. It improves your thinking. Really does. Okay, number 2 here. Step modifier system. Underrated design. Instead of stacking flat bonuses, difficulty shifts the die you roll alongside the D20. Easier, better chances, right? Harder, worse chances. Why it stands out? Unified system for difficulty. Different degrees of it. Works across combat, skills, everything. Fans argue cleaner than stacking modifiers, more intuitive once learned. And this game is all about learning before you're going to get better at it. But once you learn, I think even fans would agree with me, it takes a moment to learn, but once you learn, you get addicted. Straight out addicted to Alternity. Alternity is a beautiful game. A very beautiful game. True skill, number 3 here, true skill-based identity without going full chaos. Compared to Dungeons & Dragons, class-driven, or GURPS, fully open, Alternity structured freedom. So it's like a light structure. You get professions for direction of who your character is going to be. Skills for their identity. Why fans like it. Flexibility without overload. Clear roles without hard restrictions. So you might have a role, but it doesn't say you can't go lean over here. Right? So it's not like a class where label just means that's who you are and you're leaning right into that gameplay. No, this is a sort of profession, but you can lean over here. You can do a bit outside of what some expectation might be of your character. Number 4, damage system that feels real. We always want real, right? A lot of guys want real in the hobby. 3 tracks: stun, wound, mortal. What this does: characters degrade over time. Injuries matter immediately. Combat has consequences compared to hit point systems. Less abstract, more tension, more realism. More diddly. But that's TSR. More diddly. Diddly old school was common. Combat was always, it was never meant to be superhero. That's why you hear the critiques of newer editions. Superhero games where you could take all kinds of hits, where in old school, it's like, no, combat is diddly. Like more like the real world. You take too many hits, you're say goodnight. Number 5, combat. Combat feels dangerous, not a grind. Most RPG combat, long, repetitive, attrition-based. Alternity, shorter lifespan, higher risk, tactical decisions matter. Fans love you don't feel safe when it's ran correctly. Every fight matters, especially the ones that you avoid. One system, multiple sci-fi styles, done right. Very true. Many games claim flexibility. Alternity actually supports space opera, Star Drive, conspiracy horror, dark matter, or hard sci-fi. I say hard sci-fi because that's covering the later settings that came out and all the homebrewed settings people would make for this game, right? Why this matters. You don't need a new system for each genre. It adapts without breaking. So the system is perfect the way it is. Once you learn it, get it right. So you can just make a new setting with a new tone, and the system will be applied to that without an issue. Though the only difference is without going a little off script, is each setting, each idea, when you look at character creation, you realize it matters how you make the character to fit the setting. So one type of character sort of build or structure might not be good for the next game. Okay, 7. Difficulty feels transparent to players. Because of the step system, players understand how hard something is, what their chances look like. Compared to hidden DC systems, less guesswork, more informed decisions. Number 8, balance between crunch and flexibility is important. This is the real selling point. It's not ultra light or ultra heavy. It sits in the middle. Enough rules to matter, enough freedom to adapt. Fans argue This is where many modern games fail. They go too far in one direction. So if you're looking for any balance, it won't be in combat, but it will be in this area, right? And the way it applies to settings. Number 9, system consistency across play. Same logic applies to combat, skills, tasks. So it's certain things are easy to learn. It's just getting good at doing the game overall. It's not hard to understand. So same logic applies to the combat, skills, tasks. Once learned, you're not relearning systems constantly. It's once you learn, it's all about the quality of your play after that. This makes long-term play smoother because if you get players that care, they're going to understand the game pretty quick, and then they're just going to start performing because they're paying attention. That's when the game finally gets where you want it to get to. That's where you get fans that stay with it forever, because once you get by the bump in the road, the guys who like it, once they know how to play, once they have a game master that can run it, they're in for life. Like, I know guys that have been playing Alternity forever. The big picture. Alternity doesn't win by being flashy. It wins by being consistent, being flexible, giving meaningful outcomes. Where fans say it beats modern systems, according to fans, it does better at handling nuanced outcomes, making combat feel risky, providing real system depth without full complexity overload, supporting multiple sci-fi tones in one engine. Alternity doesn't try to simplify RPGs. It tries to make every role matter. And that's why people still respect it. Very true. Okay. Now we go into something like everyone who follows me, they know what's next is criticisms and defense. So criticism number 1, the system is clunky. Okay, step modifiers, multiple dice types, situational adjustments. New players often feel slowed down, because this is new. This is going to get complaints from new players. Slowed down, overwhelmed, confused early on. Defense, it's consistent once learned. The system always follows the same logic, builds off of the same core idea. Once you get it, it runs smoothly. Decisions feel meaningful. So it is a learning process, but what fans would say is once you learn, the payoff is overwhelmingly worth it, right? It's worth it to go through. It's not that you're completely wrong with your criticism up front, but that goes away with experience. Criticism number 2, too much math, too many modifiers. The issue, adding and subtracting step dice, tracking difficulty shifts, can slow pacing, especially in combat and complex situations. Defense adds nuance and control. Compared to swingy dice systems, Alternity gives predictability and player awareness of difficulty. Criticism number 3, combat can drag. The issue here, action phases, damage tracking, stun, wound, mortal, tactical considerations. Fights can become slow, crunch heavy. Defense, combat has weight. This is not fast arcade combat. It's dangerous, tactical, and all kinds of consequences that you can face in it. So it's meant to be detailed, but you get used to it. Criticism number 4, awkward middle ground. Not simple, not fully crunchy. The issue, not as clean, simple as modern streamlined games. Not as deep and heavy as heavy simulation systems like GURPS. Some players feel it doesn't fully commit either way. Defense, that balance is the point. Alternity sits between accessibility and depth. It gives enough crunch to matter, enough flexibility to breathe. So what I'm really talking about is all kinds, like these criticisms for this game especially, it's I jumped in, this is what I thought. The fans are the people that stayed around for getting past that, and this is what they think, right? Criticism number 5, lack of a defining setting. No single iconic world. Split between Star Drive, Dark Matter. Compared to games with strong identity, it feels less focused. Defense, it's a toolkit by design. You're not locked into one genre or one tone. You get multiple experiences with one system. Criticism number 6, short lifespan. True. Limited support. The issue. Released in 1998, quickly overshadowed by Dungeons and Dragons 3rd edition. Result, smaller library, less long-term development. So the point is, at one point, they do walk away from the game earlier than other games that TSR worked on. That most is like they walked away from this early on. So it didn't get a lot of love that it should have got. It was made for expansion and made for long-term, but TSR's already bought out, and WotC was not going to stick with TSR. So, defenso, what exists is solid. Fans argue. The core system is complete. The existing settings are strong. It didn't need endless supplements to work, as you heard from a fan earlier on the stream. Still going strong today. They don't care for the new fucking Kickstarter, nothing. They still live on the game that came out in 1998. And there's a very, actually, pretty large cult following for this game. For real. Criticism number 7. Character creation can feel restrictive. The issue. Profession's guide builds. Skill points are tight. Some players feel limited early on. Not fully freeform. Defense encourages meaningful choices. That's the limitations. You must define your role and accept weaknesses. This creates stronger party dynamics because you don't want to have just the same characters. You need a spread of different types of characters to handle different things, right? So it has clear niches, which is meant to be good, right? Criticism number 8, learning curve is front-loaded. The issue here, players must learn step system, degrees of success, skill structure. You forget how much the game master has to learn. Early sessions can feel rough. Defense, payoff long-term. Any player of the system will say that's true. And it takes a bit to learn it to get the payoff, right? You can't get it instantly. Don't look for your own. Like, again, that early experience, you shouldn't even judge the game on it. Like, as long as you like some elements of it, that's enough to stay with it. Then you want to learn, right? Once learned, the system becomes intuitive. Gameplay speeds up. Then you get the experience Alternity is trying to give you for real. The real divide. This game splits players into 2 camps. One side, too clunky, too slow. Why not just play something simpler? Other side, great balance of depth and flexibility. Meaningful mechanics, underrated system. The real truth, Alternity didn't fail because it was bad. It struggled because it arrived at the wrong time. So true. So true. It required investment to learn. As, in my opinion, any game should. It was replaced before it could grow. But again, many fans will say, doesn't matter. We like what was already there. Alternity isn't broken. It's just a system that asks you to meet it halfway. And not everyone was willing to do that. That solidly true. Okay. Last area. As you guys know, I cover right up to the part where it's worth mentioning stuff. Number 1 of the things that are worth mentioning. The dice chain isn't random. It's structured. People say you add another die. But what matters? It follows a clear step progression. Example, bonus, D4, D6, D8. Penalty, D4, D6, D8, D12, D20. It's predictable scaling, not chaos. Number 2, amazing success is hard to hit. And that's intentional. Ordinary, common success, or sort of common outcome, not success, common outcome. Good is solid, right? This is where you're starting to get success. And then amazing is your big rare, outstanding. You don't hand out amazing casually. If you do, you break the system's tension, right? Action check system. Initiative is not static. Combat isn't roll once, go in order. Instead, actions check determine order, timing, phases. This makes combat more dynamic, that's what it's meant to be, and more tactical. Weapon modes actually matter. Weapons aren't just damage numbers. You've got burst fire, auto fire, different effects on hit. These interact with degrees of success. Result, gun feels different, combat choices matter. Number 5, armor reduces damage. It doesn't just avoid hits. Unlike many systems, armor doesn't just make you harder to hit, it reduces incoming damage. So it's a mix. Or some systems, armor just stops damage, like soaks up some systems. The armor might just make it harder to hit. This is a combination, right? So it reduces incoming damage. It interacts with stun, wound, and mortal. This makes gear choices meaningful. Broad skills versus specialty skills is a big deal in this. You don't just have a skill, you have broad skills, baseline, specialty, where you shine. If you only take broad skills, you're average. That's what they would say. If you specialize, you will excel. So do you want to be average, or do you want to be someone who excels at certain things, right? Number 7, professions affect skill cost. It's not just flavor. Professions change how expensive skills are, right? That you're choosing. That shapes character identity and build direction. Number 8, Star Drive has real factions, not just background noise. In Star Drive, stellar ring nations, megacorps, alien powers. These aren't just lore, they drive campaigns. And so campaign play can be very interesting. This is why a lot of people love Star Drive. Dark Matter, that's the number 9, is built around secrets, not combat. In Dark Matter, players don't know everything. Truth is hidden. Information is real power. If you run it like combat first, you're missing the point. You really are. That'd be a waste of time. Okay, number 10, mortal damage is brutal. When you hit mortal damage, you're in real danger. This is not all be fine next turn. Characters can drop fast. Say goodnight. Number 11, situation die can stack fast. Multiple modifiers, multiple steps. If you're not careful, rolls get extreme quickly. Good GMs control modifier stacking, keep things reasonable. That's important. I said that about how the run thing is. You want to trim some of the modifiers to keep the game flow going. If not, especially in combat, this can hurt combat, right? Number 11, social skills are mechanically relevant. Unlike some games, diplomacy, interaction skills actually matter in roles, not just talk it out. The real insider here, if you want, talk about, let me see, I'm hitting some areas here. I just gotta. Step system behavior, damage tracks, action phases. So there you go. Alternity isn't complicated because it's messy, it's layered. And once you see the pattern, everything clicks into place. Blah. Sorry, there was just some notes for myself at the end there, just making sure I didn't miss anything. I said, it's just like if I didn't mention certain things during certain parts, I was just making sure. But that's it. That's Alternity, my friends. I hope you enjoyed that. I'm still here for casual time. I'm not running off. Got that done in about an hour. That's good. I like that. I love Alternity. I am going to go back and play Dark Matter again soon at one point. So I'm really happy to have covered this. I knew I'd get myself hyped by talking about it. I hope our fan there, No, really enjoyed it. I know Craig's going to be looking into some of this because it's sci-fi, especially the Dark Matter stuff. Black Rose, later at one point we'll go over this stuff and probably want to try the game. It's not hard to sell something to Black Rose. He's like me. He's a nerd, right? Wants to play all kinds of games. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed that. And see, in casual time, I'm a smoker, my friend. Sorry about that. We'll see if chat happens. All casual time is just me sitting around seeing if people want to say stuff. And if you guys are pretty satisfied or you're busy and life is happening, I'll finish this and move on. But I'm here for a moment anyway. I'm here for a moment. That's how life works. I hope the connection was good tonight. Oh yeah, you're 100% right, Monkey. if you're going to be picking up Star Wars, why would you be trying to compete with your own product? Especially if you sort of own this now. So you're 100% right. It's just sci-fi became Star Wars for them. They're going to go in that direction. They're going to give up a lot of their support for Alternity. It's a shame. It's like Alternity just needed somebody else to take it over. They should have considered selling it off, I think, once they bought the rights to it, or making another division for it and doing what some companies do, which is pretend to be an alternative company, even if you're part of the same company. So let somebody else run Alternity. But Alternity didn't have a guaranteed built-in audience, and you can't take a risk. Like, you can't invest a bunch of money into having some other group run Alternity and build it up. But years later, as one of the big fans there, and Monkey, you know the game, I guess they're doing a Kickstarter on something new. Around 2017, they were doing it. I don't care for the new stuff. I like the old system. I like that you could just make up whatever you want, make up a sci-fi type of setting that you want to do, and this system can be placed in it because the system isn't tied to settings. So I don't have to worry, like, my setting is this, but it's made for a different setting, so it doesn't. No. It's not made to be locked in. The only thing you got to do is learn. Players got to learn that character creation can alternate from one setting to the next, right? Because a character build for this setting over here might be really good for what's coming at you. But some of that stuff might not really come at you in the same way in the next setting you're building up. So now character build becomes a little bit of a different focus. It's not that big of an issue, but just minor things. You really want to know what setting you're walking into when you're building a character. I'm glad I did before my long campaign. I did that 3 months. That was one of the most effective things I did, because I'm studying the Star Drive at the same time I'm running Dark Matter, and I'm realizing, oh man, I'm going to have to communicate to the players that the games are so different that the way they build their characters I need to pitch Star Drive to them so they understand the difference between that and Dark Matter. So I understood that before we got into the game, but it's even getting into the game where the players went, this really is just fucking different. I'm like, oh yeah. And Monkey, yourself, you did something more homebrew, but you proved, which is good, you proved this system is flexible for anything. You can sort of aim at it in this way, right? You could take it with your own idea and apply it to there. Like our friend Noah there, big fan of it, was talking about the StarCraft push on it and some alternative systems made afterwards, later. Ones I didn't focus on, so I didn't talk about that stuff. I mentioned hard sci-fi on top of Dark Matter and Star Drive because I understood that it's made so you can homebrew stuff, right? You can homebrew worlds. And yes, you can, even the way you do it can set the tone. Like, so you can decide how play goes just with the setting you're creating for it. So you get a lot of control as a person creating a setting for this game. Very good. And I just hope it teaches some people about being introduced. Like, if you're going into Alternity, everything I said in this stream should be something you want to know, because this warned you about the difficulties. I explained to you what you need to learn, and then I give good ideas to game masters and players about how they should approach the game and what they're doing and what's important to them. So I say it's an overview, but it is full of really good facts to understand going in, right? And it will help you. This stream will extremely help a game master running this, because little things like understanding the modifier stacking can really slow the game down. As a game master, I had to learn the hard way. It's good to hear somebody tell you this, so you can just be like, look at it and go, oh, I see there. That could slow down combat big time. Yes, it can, baby. That can slow down combat big time. But again, it's not so slow once you become an experienced player, because then everything you can do is faster because you're more confident. That's why this game needs experienced people. You need to have a bit of experience with it to make it go well. Star Wars Special Edition. I am covering Star Wars at one point here. That will be good. There's a lot of Star Wars people out there in the TTRPG land. When I say Star Wars, of course, I'm not covering Star Wars the movies or books. I'm talking about tabletop role-playing game. But yeah, I like sci-fi. I like superheroes. Remember, Tuesday is villains and vigilantes. And then I think I'm doing a really important stream, really a good one, especially for a lot of young people that are in the pro OSR, that are doing old school D&D. I'm like, some of those guys should listen to it. Really genuinely listen to D&D encounters, because I'm going to talk about it in a general sense, but then I'm going to say how I come at encounters, and I'm an experienced DM. So if you've been running for a couple of years, you're probably going to want to hear what I have to say about running encounters. I mean, combat encounters. Like, you're really going to want to hear how I do that because that comes from experience, and I could be giving you a good heads up. And I guarantee some of the stuff where I'll point out that you're failing, you might not even see it as failing right now, but you are. And I'm not trying to insult people. I'm just saying what I tell you can improve you. And that's not from me being better. It's like when I came into the hobby, I'm not insulted by it. There were guys that were doing this for like 20 years. I mean, it's not like 20 years, sorry, like 10 or so years from the 70s. They had way more experience than I did. So I didn't care how good I was at certain things. I was smart and wise and listened to them. And I never let my head blow up. And they just knew things I didn't realize. Like, oh, I thought it was running it good, but let me try that. Oh, that is better. That is better. That's way better. Right? But I thought I was running it good, but I didn't have an ego either. So since my head wasn't blown up, I could listen to guys who've been doing it for 10 or so years and go, yeah, that's really good. I'll take that. And so some of the guys in the pros are, not just them, but anybody running that's sort of new to the old school, if you're running encounters, you probably want to hear, I hope they do, especially one guy. I already talked about him. I don't want to put too much attention, but he's not bad. Some of the guys, I guess, are not that bad, but there's minor things where the minor things are a big issue for quality, experience, and just becoming a better dungeon master of D&D. And it is D&D encounters I'll be covering. Again, there's so much to do with Dungeons and Dragons that when I did the streams on the old school stuff, I could have been there for 6 hours for each edition. And I'm like, I don't got 6 hours to do the editions. So I'm like, the Undid, that extra stream I did, the skill focus stream for D&D, and the role play, all these stuff are extended things I could have done for old school D&D. But I didn't need to do that to cover what they were. So I just got all this extra stuff I put together, mix of research and my opinions, where I'm like, I can do some extra streams on this stuff. So Dungeons and Dragons old school, because that's what I cover. Encounters we're going to cover Thursday. But Tuesday is Villains and Vigilantes. I'm almost through. I'll be through the hero games pretty quickly. I wasn't big. I mean, I played and ran some of the hero games. Still to this day, my favorite one, right? Heroes Unlimited. Plendium. And it's my favorite Plendium game. Like, I like Robotech, and that just like a lot of people would. The extensions of Plendium later, I didn't like the gameplay. I didn't like the changes. I like the Heroes game. I actually felt like that overall is a better version of the Plendium system than the others. It's a cleaner, straightforward, plays faster. I like the idea that you just weren't superheroes. I like where it was still a game in many ways, and you weren't like Superman. Though I had no issues with some of that stuff. I just like Heroes Unlimited. It's my favorite Plendium game. So I was really happy to cover that one, right? And that one got some juice, a couple more likes than normal. So I was happy. Alternity, though, this became a bit of a hot topic there maybe a month or so ago, because there's a group running it online, and they're new to it, and the game master is new to it. And I'm like, well, man, I know Alternity pretty well. Fuck, I could talk about this. And if you're new to it, you should listen to it. It's not about ego. It's experience. I have experience with it, baby. I can explain this well. I ran it well. I went through the rough patch of learning it, right? Oh, yeah. Beyond Supernatural Victim Rules. Did so many sitcoms with that. And as Monkey, just to let Monkey know there, because I know, just a reminder, Monkey, because I know he's into sort of a spy game or spy stuff. I'm covering the James Bond stuff and another one pretty soon at one point. Always got to do this just to sort of check. Okay, let's jump over. I'll tell you guys about the other things I've scheduled. Okay, so I got the Villains and Vigilantes. Then we'll do the D&D encounters. Then I'll be doing on the next weekend, Empire of the Petal Throne. And here's one that you guys, this should be a popular one. Call of Cthulhu next Sunday. And then we're going into my first official war game. I'm going to be covering Warhammer 40K. That should be fun, right? Let's see. I might have to just fix the schedule on that because that is no, that's right. That's right. Okay, so it's Warhammer 40K is my next casual. Then after that, I'll be doing Chivalry and Sorcery. Then Middle Earth role playing. Then Space Opera. Then Bushido. Then on my birthday, I'm going to be covering Shadowrun. It's going to be a good one. I'm not sure what the next casual talk after that's going to be. I'm still deciding. But after that, like on order, I'll be doing Gangbusters, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles RPG, Champions, another hero thing, James, and then we get to the James Bond 007 RPG. Then we get to another war game, Starship Troopers. Then there'll be another casual. Again, the next two casuals I haven't totally decided on. But right after that, I'm going to be doing Top Secret. Then another war game, Car Wars, very popular one. Then we're going to be covering a game, Paranoia. Then Tune is the one after that. And the final one I have scheduled, and I mentioned it tonight, is GURPS. That will be the end of May, is GURPS. By then, I'll be scheduling probably another month or 2 months worth of streams. So then you guys can see what all games are going to follow that. But finally, Warhammer 40K is going to be the first official war game that I cover. Because I did some war gaming. That's it. A lot of people like it. I don't tell everybody everything about myself on purpose. I knew these streams would be a surprise because a lot of people for years that have known me on here, they tie me to second edition AD&D. They think that's it. I'm like, I'm just confident, so I don't need to sit there and brag and correct people. It's like, okay, if you want to think that, sure. Yeah, sure. I'm only a second edition guy yet. All right, guys, sure. I'm a freak. I'm a freak when it comes to tabletop role-playing games. An absolute fucking freak. So I'm glad you're looking forward to all that, Monkey. The Top Secret and James Bond 007. If you're really into that stuff and not just doing it for fun, you'll like those. I think you'll like it. Monkey, I think you're going to like every stream. Remember the system. I do the Influences Birth. See, I understand talking about one game can get boring after a long time. But at the same time, I understand that talking about a variety of games could also be something weird because it's like, there might not be everybody into every one. But I thought my way of just learning these streams is coming up with a system that makes every game, even new ones to you, interesting, which is the way I cover them. And that's what I'm trying to get everybody accustomed to, is being excited with the ways. Like, I never heard of that game, but I know Steven is going to do the influences in the birth of the game. He's going to do how to run it, character creation, setting. We're going to get into what would be argued, make them better and what makes them different. Then we get into the criticisms and defenses of the game. And finally, I finish off with just details that are worth mentioning that might not have been over-drilled or explained exactly clearly in the other overview parts, right? And that will be the system I do for every game. So I hope the last so many streams, last like 2 weeks, people have gotten used to the system of how I'm covering these games. Now, when it comes to the casual nights, that's different. I usually am not going to cover, not usually, but it can happen, some casual nights like Warhammer 40K. It will be my first go at a war game. So I'm using casual nights to so I have a free way of just not having it be confused with the way I run I cover other games, right? So I'm trying to get everybody accustomed to that. But on casual nights, it's more like either a side thing where I didn't add that into something, like I'm doing with the D&D encounters, or an experiment where I'm going to try to learn how I want to cover war games. Like, how do I want to come at them? Because I want to come up with a system and then get you guys used to the system of the way I cover it, instead of getting you expecting everybody to like every new game that I'm going to be talking about. It's like, I just hope that you like the way I cover all games, regardless if you know them or not. So it's like, if you're just used to, like, you like the rhythm of the way I do that, that's what I want to get you guys used to, right? Because if I get you guys accustomed to the way I cover these things, I can do games forever and have you excited with a variety of stuff forever, instead of talking about one game forever. Because, I mean, you talk about one game, how many things can you keep saying about one game after a year, right? That you're not just repeating shit over and over and over again. So I don't want to get to that point. I like the way I'm doing the coverage. Some casual nights might be no specific topic at all. But when the audience gets a little bigger and wants to casually talk to me, casual nights, some of them will be very light on topic and more about just me talking to you. And the good thing is, on casual nights, I get some guys that don't like me standing up, walking back and forth. And I say, all right, be patient with my streams that I do this, and I'll reward you. I'll do a casual night, and casual night is me sitting down. So on all the casual streams, I'll be sitting down in front of the camera, right? But I'm like an old game master. I like to stand up and walk around. I can sit down, but I like to stand up and walk around. And I've done a lot of stage talking to crowds when I was younger, and even in recent years, where I'm used to standing on the stage and talking to people. So I like this being on a stage type of mindset, and then talking to you about this stuff, right? I'm pretty straightforward with the reading from the thing. I don't try to hide where my eyes go or wear glasses. I don't do that. It's like, look, you guys are ignorant. You know I'm reading from a thing. So there's no hiding it. I tried to get used to the idea of looking back at the camera. So it's like, read it so much, but be able to look back at you and add opinions. That's where I really think I get to hype up some of the stuff. I read it out, and then I can, that part, well, here's what I want to add. Here's the other thing I want to state. Or I want to emphasize that line I just said from the thing I wrote down. And that way I'm still trying to interact. And then every so often, making sure I'm looking over here at chat, and I'll stop no matter what I'm reading. And I hope you guys notice that I try my best to stop pretty frequently, catch what you guys are saying, and talk, right? And that way it's a mix of script and casual and chat. And I hope everyone's enjoying these things, because I'm willing to do these things forever and work my butt off and keep improving, and just coming up with ways that you guys like how this is done. And then if you guys all like this, again, you get to learn about tons of games that you might never play, but you've heard of. Like, there's a lot of guys that have done Call of Cthulhu or Shadowrun, but then there's a lot of people that have heard about these games and go, man, they sound like they could be fun. I've heard snippets here and there about them, Call of Cthulhu or Shadowrun. Me, I'm going to give you the overview that really explains that game to you and give it to you in a decent amount of time. It's not 6 hours. It's not 3 hours, maybe a good hour. In some cases, depending, could be a little longer. But it's a quick, now I really understand the game. That's what I hope you walk away like. Alternity. I hope anybody who watches tonight goes and walks away going, now I get it. Like, I got to go read the book for the rest of the rules, but now I get what I'd be walking into if I went to play that game or run that game. And that's what I'm hoping. I'm teaching, promoting, and getting people excited, or maybe even teaching you about a game so you can understand you wouldn't like it. Right? Like, it's like Castle Falkenstein. I didn't do that thinking it would be popular. I understood right away. It's a game where most people are going to hear and go, interesting. Yeah, okay, well, I get why it's not for me. I knew that would not be popular with likes or a big crowd thing, but it was like, hey, it is a secret gem. Monkey was saying he likes to hear about games he's never even heard about, but there's a reason you didn't hear about this game. It wasn't big, and it wasn't meant to be big. It was Castle Falkenstein was, it's like, all right, if you're already making money off these other games, you can sort of fuck around. And it's more of a passion project for Mike Pondsmith, I believe. He knew it would be niche. And it is the one game where I would say I don't consider it a real tabletop role-playing game in the sense of a tabletop role-playing game. It is a drama. It's a game for a drama class. So I would actually want to go to an actor's place, go to a drama class. And if I was going to pitch a drama class at really actors that love what they're doing, and I said, I got a game for you guys. One of the first games I want to pitch at them is this one. Well, not this one, but the one last stream, Castle Falkenstein, because I know they love it. You go to an actors group, they fucking love it. I don't think enough theater kids knew about the game though, because it just wasn't popular. But it's more of a drama class. It's a story first game, but there's not many story first games out there. You'll hear all kinds of people in the hobby say, well, this is a story game, this is a story game. I'm like, there's barely any real story games out there. So when I hear people tell me this is a story game, I'm like, no, even that game, story emerges. You're playing a game, the story emerges. That's most tabletop role-playing games, even when you tell me the story games. There's very few, I believe, are story games, true classified as that. Castle Falkenstein is about telling a story from the get-go. So it really is storytelling. Not World of Darkness. World of Darkness is a game where a story emerges. Right? A lot of people call it story. No, it's not. Go check it out. In reality, it's a game where the story emerges, just like any other tabletop role-playing game. One of the most unique games, and I covered on purpose because I love it myself, but it is one of the actual story games outside of Castle Falkenstein, is Pendragon. Pendragon really is a game where even the way the game is set up for multiple generations of people, it is about telling a story. World of Darkness is not about telling a story. It's you play a game, unique, and it might focus on a bit of role play. But just because a game focuses on social interaction and role play doesn't make it a storytelling game. That's still part of the game, the social interaction. So it's still a game where a story emerges from what you do, right? A real story game, in my opinion, a real story game is a game where your intent going into even how the game is made is intended to tell a story. World of Darkness is still intended to give you a game. You look at World of Darkness, it's rules, it's everything. And I like the role play. I love World of Darkness. I'm running it. I'm a super fan of World of Darkness, right? I love the hell out of it. But when somebody tells me that's a storytelling game, I'm like, no, it's not. Story emerges from what you're doing. It's still a game. And role play is still part of the game. Remember, it's a role-playing game, right? Pendragon is a story game, a storyteller game, where you're initially on purpose trying to tell a story. Castle Falkenstein, so not many games are actual storytelling games. So I actually think that label is falsely put on a ton of games where it shouldn't be. Right? It should not be that, right? Can you, the group and the person running it, can you purposely take any game, even Dungeons and Dragons, and approach it with the mindset to tell a story from the get-go, where you're trying to actually build a real story from the get-go? You can, but if you tell me the game is made for that, you'd be lying. That you have to intentionally do that, where Pendragon is not intentional. Pendragon is built, right? So even if you don't intend to tell a story, the game is going to attempt to tell a story if you're going to play it right. That's it, right? So very few games are story games, so I don't even get that label. And I just most people I hear like, I'm a story game person. I'm like, well, what games do you like play or run? They'll tell me. I'll be like, no, you're not. They're like, well, this is a story game. No, World of Darkness is a story game. No, it's not. It's a game where the story emerges from what you do. And it could be a shitty story or a good story, right? This is the last one here. So I know people, I hope people appreciate the stream, because I know a lot of people were asking about Alternity recently, and I'm like, well, I'm going to cover it and get it right. And I'd be like, the guys that were playing it, they probably like me to run it for them. I see one session ran online, not bad. I see everybody trying their butts off. But I'm like, if I was running that, you guys would have loved it. That's me, though. I'm crazy. Now it's a bit of confidence there. It's not complete ego. Oh, it's a bit. I mean, I've earned it. I put my time into that game, so I got good at it. So you wouldn't be sitting down with someone who's learning how to game master Alternity. You'd be sitting down with someone who knows exactly how to run it. Mint. Took me forever to learn Mint, but I learned it. I grinded that first 3 months of the Dark Matter setting. But it was good because it wasn't like I didn't have to relearn it when I went to Star Drive. Any fan will tell you that. Once you know the system, it doesn't matter what setting you jump to. You don't need to relearn the system. The system is what it is. So once you get the system down, you're good. Go with whatever setting you want. You got to learn your setting. You got to understand the setting you're going to play with. That part you've got to learn. But the game mechanics, you don't got to relearn. It's just, the only thing I would say about Alternity is if you're going to run a good game, it's a team sport. Unlike, say, D&D, players can't carry weak players because you'll run into problems, right? You shouldn't do that. It's not a carry game. D&D, the better players can carry the weak players. Even though, again, go back in the day, everyone hated that because it meant a half-assed player was getting a good experience that they didn't earn. They'd be having a good experience in many cases, but they're not really earning it. The better players are the ones doing the work for them to have fun. So that's why people were pissy about half-assed people in the hobby, right? Because in D&D, you got people not making the same effort, but they get to have fun off of somebody else's back. And it really is. If they're in a group together and they're all half-assed people, it will be a shitty time in a D&D game. So the only way for a half-assed careless player to have a good time is to literally, grab onto the coattails of a good player. And they don't, in a way, people would look at it like this. They don't deserve to have a good time because they're not really doing the real work. That they're literally having a good time off of other players' backs. And Alternity, if you're a bad player, you hurt the game overall. Like if you're just half-assed, you hurt the game overall, and you'll hurt in a noticeable way. You'll hurt the game even for the guys that you're trying to ride. Right? So then you stick out really powerfully if you're half-assed in a lot of games outside of D&D. It's just true. If you half-assed in a lot of games outside of D&D, it will be noticeable. It will be embarrassingly noticeable. It will be shameful because everyone will know the game is only slowed down because of you. That will stick out, trust me. Say you're like 5 people, 4 people are making an effort. It goes smooth in their turn, all smooth, hit you, boom, slows down. And then everyone notices the only time it slows down and the combat or whatever slows down is all on you. It will bring you attention you really don't want in the game, right? If you're half-assing and you want to be able to stick in the background, have a good time, you can do that in D&D. But in a game like Alternity, everyone will know you're fucking the game. Their experience is getting fucked because you're not even riding them. You're fucking everything. So, and a lot of games are like that too. Outside of D&D. That's why when I would run games like this, I knew right away I might have a D&D group where, say, out of 6 guys, there might be 2 or 3 that are really going to be caring and focused. Most games I ran outside of D&D, I would only take on those like 3 players. I would take on more, but I'd be like, all right, in this group, I got these 3 over here. And this other group, there's just 2 guys I'll take here and put them together. But the guys that would ride the coattails of the better players, usually I wouldn't even invite them to certain games. They'd be like, can I play? I'd be like, no, I don't think this is up your alley, dude. I don't think this game is made for you. I just had to be honest. It's because I just knew them. It's like you're going to come in, I'm going to tell you what's wrong, and you're not going to improve. So why bring you in where it turns into a sour situation? You go half-ass in our D&D sessions. You can at least bring a little bit to the table to help. You'll ride the coattails of the better players, and you can get away with it. But in Alternity, you'll harm the game, and you can't ride other people. So in D&D, the game can go well even while you half-ass. Again, and you'll be getting a good experience, but it will be something you haven't earned at all, right? But it's like, okay, you can do that. We can get it because you're not damaging the game overall. But if I bring you into games like Alternity, yeah, you damage the game. you damage the experience for everyone you're playing the game with. So in that way, you'll stick out, and I don't want to have to go through a process of embarrassingly removing you, right? Like, just don't want to do that. That's why I say, like, I understood when I first came to the hobby when I was young, I would meet guys that would consider themselves elite that would complain about bringing in very average, half-assed people because they always felt those people hurt the hobby. You can get away with being half-assed in D&D in most every other tabletop role-playing game you can. But that's true in wargaming too. And so a lot of games outside of D&D was really simulation and made with some wargaming aspects and mindset of simulating things. And in wargaming, if you half-ass, the other players, you'll get walked over. Wargaming will eliminate you out of that culture right away. You come in half-assed to wargamers, they're all fucking dead serious. They're fucking, look, I want to play against that guy. And everybody will know right away why you want to play against him because you're gonna fucking clean that guy out. Right? That guy's gonna suck. And when you make tabletop role-playing games that focus on a lot of simulation that, like say in wargaming, like say Traveler, you bring in weak players, they can't hide. They can't ride the coattails of good players. D&D is one of the only systems, not the only, but one of the only systems where half-assed players can get by without it sticking out like a problem. And that's why you'll see a lot of jokes and memes. I'm not just making this up. Go to X, you'll see memes. Like, there'll be jokes like, oh, I had fun last night. Yeah, because I carried you. And you can actually say that in D&D. Where, yeah, most groups, 2 or 3 players carry the rest of the group. And when you really look at it, does the rest of the group deserve to have a good time? Well, they haven't earned it. They're going to have a good night, but it's 3 players that are doing the work to earn a good night. The other 3 or 4 players will not be investing in the same way. They'll half-ass and be careless. Again, it just doesn't work in other games. Alternity is one of the ones where if you have a half-ass player, I hate to say it, but for your group to have a good time, do take my suggestion about how to remove players without just kicking them out. Like, and you'll hear that in some of my other videos. But yeah, if you really want to have a good time in Alternity, when you meet the flaky player, remove them. If not, they'll hold the game down. So if you get a guy who's sort of paying attention, no, he can go play D&D. He can't play Alternity. If you're and why keep fucking up your nights for that guy? Sooner or later, you let the whole game blow up because the other players will get sick of it, because it will ruin their experience. So a half-assed player will ruin their experience. No matter how good of a game master you are, it just doesn't matter with a game Alternity. You have a half-assed player, they have to go. Right? If you get a guy who needs help with his character getting created for D&D, like you need another player to help him create the character, that guy, don't bring him to Alternity. You know before you even suggest it in your mind. Maybe I'll bring that. No, not that guy. That guy gets to sit out. That guy is okay for D&D. He can ride the coattail, my good players. Alternity, he will ruin the experience for me and the other players. And he can't ride somebody else and it be okay. Unless you're okay with half-ass gaming. I just have a higher standard. I have a very high standard as a person in the tabletop role-playing game hobby because I don't want to waste my time on shitty experiences. I'm looking, like, I don't mind the grind. I don't mind the shitty experience from learning. That's part of the deal. But once I get something down, I want to have good experiences with it. Again, I don't mind D&D because you can get away with it and I still have a good time. And the good players have a good time. So fair enough. But in Alternity, you'll fuck up how that works for everyone. So, and it won't matter how good the game master is or how good the other players are. You'll stick out like a sore thumb. You'll be a real problem because you're careless. So it's just not made for you. Again, if you need help with little things, probably not in your wheelhouse, right? Not in your wheelhouse. And you don't want to be rude to people or be hateful or egotistic, but it's if the game won't let you get around that problem, what do? Pretend? You got to be just dead honest. This game will not let you, unless you're all willing to have a shittier experience for the sake of bringing in a player who half-asses. If you're willing to do that, go ahead. I just have a higher standard. If I know I can have a good experience with good players that pay attention, focus, the guys who lead the fucking D&D groups, in a game like Alternity, I'm bringing them in, period. That's it. Those 2 or 3 people out of the bigger group will be coming over for the Alternity game. The rest, I'm not even offering it to them, right? I just don't want to have the awkward thing of saying, because once you know that's how a game works, you just know. It's just to save the social conflict, don't invite the guys that are half-assing it. And we all have to admit, most players in D&D half-ass. It's the truth. That's why there's constant jokes out there, and it's a popular meme about 1 or 2 players carrying the group. Constant memes and pictures of old school D&D guys joking, yeah, I had to carry them. No, you had a good time because I carried you. Well, that's not a joke. You really are. Most players in D&D are being carried. It's just they get to get away with it. And most every game old school outside of D&D, most of them, no, you will be the problem in the game. Everyone else is going smooth, and then suddenly combat slows down because of you. Suddenly the play part where you had to figure that out new skills slows down because of you. And it will be specific to the half-assed person where everyone notices without that player, we all have a great time. Once you know that's real, what do? You got to look at most D&D players and just go, yeah, most of these games are not for you. And that's because a lot of these side games like Traveler were made by wargame mindset. And again, you go back to wargaming. I know this from personal experience. I had to learn real fast. I went in, and guys they would suggest I play against were guys that were hinting at being lazy. Like, Steven, you're new here. Yeah. If you want to have a chance, because they knew I took it serious. So wargamers always respected me because they know I'm just a serious person in general. So even though I didn't game as much as them as wargaming, they at least knew I took this fucking everything did serious. And guys that were half-assed were fucking not good for that community. That's why wargaming was limited to a niche. You might be like, wasn't wargaming more popular? Wargaming was extremely popular. Extremely popular. People forget this. Extremely popular, especially with guys. But even in the 80s with some women. But what you found out with wargaming is, why was there still only a niche if it's so fucking popular? Because the guys that stuck around in wargaming were the ones that were good. So it's not a team sport. You can't ride someone's coattails. You're on your own. So if you suck, say goodbye. You won't last long. You'll get destroyed by the good players, and the community won't take you serious. So you would see just guys flake out. Wargaming was always popular. So I actually agree with guys that say it's a popular thing. 100% agree. But why was it niche overall, the community? Because the community is made up of good players. And they were elite. Wargaming was an elite group of minds for playing war games. That's what you figured out. Again, you go in a year, there just be guys cycling in all kinds. So that tells you there's a shitload of people wanting to try it. But shitloads of guys would leave. Why? Because they get in, man, this is so exciting. Get their asses whooped because they're half-assing. And they half-ass against the wrong guys. Just guys that were good were just saying, that guy's going to play 10 games and get destroyed. He'll leave. He probably wouldn't even make it to 10. And you'd be like, yeah? Like, they could read it. So, because wargamers, when I first started talking to them, they already knew the signs that were going to be red flags. The reason they said it was okay for me was they said the good thing that's not a red flag for you, Steven, is we know how serious you are as a gamer. So even if this is new to you, that's effectively good. That's a good sign for wargaming from the get-go, right? You'll improve. We know you will. You'll take this serious. We know you will. Even if you have a few bad games, they also knew this about me because they see me grind with tabletop role-playing games. They said another good effective thing with me was you can come in and lose some games, but you'll get better. You'll actually get better because you'll pay attention and learn. But we know you'll go through a grind to get used to them. I did. And they knew that was a good thing. That was not a red flag. Yep, Dave and Gary published a war game together. Yep, D&D. Wargaming was a big thing for Gary. That's where they practiced D&D. But it's just the thing is, D&D just did not sell to most of his wargaming friends. As we know, most wargamers hated it. And that's why a bunch of these odd games came out because wargamers hated Dungeons and Dragons for the most part, so they'd start making games like Traveler. Because they were like, D&D is loose. It's for... It's how you knew is Frank Metzger and Mulvey understood it by the time you get to Beckman. Read the language. They realized that regardless to the attempt to attach chainmail to it, the game did not sell to most wargamers, and the vast majority of people playing D&D were not wargamers. They knew it right away. Most wargamers rejected it, and then a bunch of wargamers that hated Dungeons and Dragons started making more simulated games. But the reason they didn't sell is because, well, if the majority of people in the tabletop role-playing game hobby are not wargamers to begin with, and you're trying to sell a more wargame mindset game to them, it's not going to compete with D&D. There's a reason D&D won, is because it wasn't a wargaming game. Like, you could use chainmail, there were suggestions there, but miniatures were optional because they cost too much, so they couldn't make them mandatory. Pure theater of the mind was mandatory. Like, it's just how it was. They understood. And you look at the language of Frank Metzger and all that, they realized the customers were not wargamers. And that's why you see all these old simulation wargame mindset games come out, because the wargamers wanted to sort of dip their toes into what tabletop role-playing games were, but they didn't like D&D. So they wanted their own games that were more like in their speed. Almost to 2 hours. I'm driving this out to 2 hours. I wasn't sure. I figured I'd like, but you know, I'm a talking machine. You guys know that. I can just talk. And I do stage talking. That's why I don't need like always 50 rounds of chat. One question can get me going for a while. No, I do like wargaming. That's why I'm covering Warhammer 40K. It's going to be good. And I'm going to, like, I think that will be appealing to the wargamers that are around. But they hate, some wargamers or guys that want to look at D&D like wargaming. They hate it when I tell the truth about old school D&D. That's not really a wargamer's game, especially the Pro Wizard, because they're not really from the old school era. Most of the guys are all new, so they try to manipulate and call it's a wargamer. I'm like, no, fuck, wargamers, honest, real wargamers from back in the day would all agree with me. I mean, that's sort of weird. Real old school wargamers be like, yeah, Gary came from us. Gary wanted us to become a built-in customer base. We just didn't take. We just didn't like what D&D was. It was so different from what we were doing. We just didn't like it. And we felt like, if you talk to wargamers back then, most of them just felt like D&D wasn't structured as a type of game that they would be into in the first place. There's a reason they like war games, and those reasons were sort of exited out of D&D really early. And D&D was an experiment. Again, by the time you get to Beckme, the guys that Gary passed the game off to work on, because he passed a lot over to other people, like Frank Metzger, Mulvey, and shit like that. They just clued in. Like 90% of our guys are all fucking not wargamer people. And that's why most people didn't use chainmail. Go back to people that started in 1974. Just meet a whole bunch of players. And you'll notice like 80 to 90% of players, just ask them, okay, guys, what's chainmail? We don't know. They used pure theater of the mind. They just skipped over. They went by the pure theater of the mind gameplay. And that's why, again, this is why guys that talk about miniatures get mad at me too, because if you're really in the old school era, you would know that most people never use miniatures. Oh, they were, Greg, again, when you meet up with war gamers that did cross over to D&D, the few that did, it was a minority. But when you looked at how they looked at D&D, it was about, like you say here, context for battles. If they weren't historically accurate, they track everything in D&D. I call it like a camping simulator. Like everything had to be so fucking accurate. Now, some of their thinking was actually pretty good. This is where you get a lot of the ideas. Like I talked about cutting the branch off. I did that recent video about like common sense ideas. Cutting the branch off, and there's resin on the branch, and you can light that like a torch that will burn for 30 minutes. And it's really hot. It makes it easier to light a fire if there's like damp wood that you're working with, because it's hotter than a normal torch's flame. A lot of those common sense ideas actually came from simulation guys that were wargamers, but there was a minority of them. But when I watch them play D&D, I'd be like, okay, you guys aren't playing the game that most people are playing. You're playing a fucking camping simulator. They go in, and it was just anal grind, and 90% of our player base just hated the fuck out of it. That's why when second edition came out, and we had a bunch of guys that weren't in that mindset anymore, second edition sold better, not sold better, but played better to the players. That's why it stuck around and competed with third edition for so long. Well, Black Rose, I'm glad you stuck around for the rest. I really appreciate that. Yep, tomorrow night we'll talk. Remember, I get the Warhammer thing coming up. So let's squeeze some talk time in about Warhammer 40K so I can get some stuff in that you want, right? Good night. I love you. Take care. Just a few minutes away from 2 hours. I just want to hit the 2 hour gimmick. So I'm finishing up this one smoke, little chain smoking here at the end. But I like wargaming. I like the Car Wars game. That was cool. I like Starship Trooper. I like Warhammer 40K. I did quite a bit of it once I learned how to do wargaming. I understood how detailed the guys were. There were some steps they understood, like you're talking about old wargamers that would write that historically accurate stuff. I was a bit looser on that. Like I played the game serious, and they respected that I took what they did serious because they knew I was different. The war game was like, yeah, we're different, but Steven will at least take what you need to take serious. He's not here to spit in our faces. So I know, and I actually got okay at some of them. And it's because I gave a fuck and tried, right? And learned. But they knew if there was a little inaccuracy, I wouldn't write up the thing. They knew that about me. It's like Steven doesn't take the final step of caring that much, right? Same thing with D&D. They cared when I see wargamers playing it, they just didn't care. They cared about stuff that I just didn't matter to me. I'm like, okay, you're camping out, get your hit points back and caring about all that stuff, right? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, that's fun. And like to them, I realized it was, but to 90% of players in the hobby, that wasn't fun. Like that wasn't even interesting. That wasn't even a game being. They feel like I'm not even being challenged anymore. I'm just like, what am I here to play a house and live a life? That's what it would feel like. I understood that caring worked in wargaming more, but in D&D, it just didn't sell well to the majority. Again, with second edition DMs came and got into it, we dropped all that type of thinking, and that meant second edition would compete even with third edition coming out, and people forget that part. Like the first 8 years of third edition, second edition equaled it in active gaming. That's what a lot of people forget. Like second edition stayed strong. Like why there was third edition, half the games. Not, oh, there was 30%. Second edition was doing all right. No, half the games were second edition. Very few active games were OD&D, BECME, or AD&D first edition. It has a cult following with loud people. But that has always been a minority. But very loud people, they'll talk more than most people in the hobby. Right? So you can sometimes misunderstand them to represent a majority of people because they speak so constantly and loudly. Yeah. And then you get the bros. The bros, sorry, I don't insult them. They call people haters. I'm like, no, I'm just talking with truth, and I'll be critical of some of the things, but I'm not a hater. I hope they have fun with what they're doing. Totally down. And I always hope they can tell the difference between someone who's anti-bros and someone who just talks the truth and examines things and looks at what they're doing. It's honest dialogue about their situation. That's all it is with me. That's why my recent video with TSR versus the bros take on one-to-one time, the few bros that have talked to me privately about it said they thought I did a fair take on it. They said, well, at least you understand us. At least you represented us properly, which is one thing they get mad at. They get a lot of people that give them heat, and they feel like those people don't even understand what they're doing. Like those people don't represent them for who they are. And here's me honestly representing them and understanding them for who they really are, for what they're doing. And every bro that I talked to privately, none of them told me to go fuck myself. I talked to a few, and they all said, yeah, you're the most fair person on this topic right now, Steven, as far as that video is concerned. That video has established you. And they said before some of your criticism, before we would put you into the hater camp, which I understood. I understand now because I understand more about how they feel about it. But since I put that video out, the bros that I do talk to a few guys that at least like the idea, they said it puts me into a camp of being fair and being someone who finally at least talks honestly about them. So now I'm just like the wargamer side of them. They pretend like D&D's wargaming. No, it's not. Wargaming thing was out by Beckman. So that's just a lie. And it didn't even hold with OD&D. 90% of the people that played OD&D were not wargamers and didn't use chainmail. They used mandatory pure theater of the mind. Right? That was mandatory. Very few wargamers crossed over. Dungeons and Dragons, old school, is not wargaming. Wargaming is wargaming. That's a fact. That's a fact. This is not up for debate. Dungeons and Dragons is not wargaming. Not at all. Didn't even slightly take. It's not wargaming, especially AD&D. AD&D 1E is anti-wargaming at its most extreme. It is so wargaming. When I say roots, there's influences by a million things when it comes to D&D. Just say, want to know what I can say about D&D? If you can call it wargaming, I can call it drama class. Because it takes from roleplay. It just takes from all these different areas. But to say it's wargaming is it's not even close to true. It's not even up for debate. It's not wargaming. You want to know what wargaming is? Go play a war game. That's wargaming. Dungeons and Dragons is its own thing. And even real wargamers back in the day accepted it as this whole it's wargaming thing is completely new language. It's completely new, and people are trying to force it in, especially through what we call the bro OSR. Or that Mike guy I seen the other night. He runs it with second edition interaction. So he does character development like second ed AD&D. He goes, I'm an AD&D 1E guy. I'm like, okay. Then he says, I do that character stuff. Well, that's second edition, dude. That's not first edition. That was not happening with first edition. Don't pretend it was. And you didn't just come up with that. That's second edition, right? And then I see him running Shadowdark. I seen what he was doing. He was doing more, explaining comment. I'm like, just about everything you're doing is not AD&D first edition. I thought you were an AD&D 1E guy. But he's not. He's really not. He's just, he doesn't classify as an AD&D 1E guy. Like everything he's doing is look, put it this way. All the stuff he's doing, when I did that with second edition, the AD&D 1E guys would curse me out. Like real old school era, real AD&D 1E guys would be opposed to character development in the way that I do it, in the way that Mike said he was doing it. They weren't big on that. They weren't big on focusing on that because roleplay. Remember I did the roleplay stream recently? There's a reason I did it. It's because the old original roleplay from OD&D up to AD&D 1E is what real AD&D 1E guys talk about. They think the focus on identity and personality that second ed did, where it was early, they thought that's not what they're into. They were opposed to that. They're like, that's not necessary. Like sooner or later, you might develop a character like after 8 or 9 or 10 months, but that's not role play to them. Role play is what I said at the start of that stream to them. So when Mike said he does that, and then I watch him run Shadowdark, I'm like thinking it's either Shadowdark he's running, and this is what Shadowdark says. And Shadowdark is too watsy for me. Look, that's another thing. Shadowdark, I noticed he gets to a point. He's like, well, you can deal with this, but you can pick the ability score that you use to decide it with. I'm like, no, that's not TSR. That's watsy. Okay, that shit. And they had this luck thing. Luck for rerolls. So I was like, the fuck? That's another watsy thing. Get that out of my face. Go away. That's not TSR. That has nothing to do with old school. Then he starts giving descriptive damage and all that. I'm like, okay, now we're back to leading into second edition. I mean, I don't know if that's just part of Shadowdark, but I'm like, dude, if you're just doing that and you do that in AD&D 1E, real AD&D 1E guys would look at you like, the fuck are you doing? Because even if they did descriptive damage, it was fluff. So I did a video the other day, and the guy says, "No, they do descriptive." Yeah, but what I mean is, when I say they do exhaustion as damage, what I'm saying is, even if you were to say you get stabbed, you get this, that just gets healed back up and goes away. It's fluff. See, second edition DMs, a lot of us, if you did damage, like say you lost a lot of bleeding, well, that means your armor class is going to take minuses during the combat. Because what we would do is represent damage in the real sense to your stats while you're alive in the fight. So I'm bleeding all over the place. That's not just role play. If we have it that you're bleeding all over the place, now your armor class is this. Yeah, now it's taking a hit. So if you're weak due to damage, the damage becomes real, not fluff, right? So any descriptive damage you see in AD&D 1E, it's no different than exhaustion because it's just paint. It's not real damage. And a lot of second edition DMs, what we changed was we did descriptive damage. Descriptive damage affected the scene. So say you cut off the arm of a goblin and you say blood squirting out. That's not just descriptive fluff. That blood is on the ground. If you move to that area, you might slide and fall. A goblin standing beside him might get the blood all over his face and get blinded from squirting out blood or something, right? That's descriptive damage was real to second edition guys, right? The 1E guys, you could either just say you take some damage, and then when you hit 0, you're going to be killed. Oh, you got stabbed through the chest, you're dead, right? If they did descriptive damage, like, oh, okay, you take a cut here, you're bleeding, he stabs you by the neck, it's fluff. Like your stats do not get harmed. Like basically at 1 hit point, you're still rolling with the same stats that you would be if you were at full hit points. So that's all paint. It's a paint job. It means nothing. The same thing as exhaustion. So that's how they looked at hit points, right? It didn't matter if you were descriptive or just ignored. Most AD&D 1E DMs back in the day would do this. Hit, miss. That's combat. You hit, he hit, you hit, he missed, you missed. It's all that was. And then at one point you're dead and the fight is over, or you're alive and the fight is over. With second edition, we got into descriptive realism. So if you got damage, well, that means you're not, if you were 15 hit points and you're down to 5, man, if your leg got hit, if we said your leg got hit and you're limping around, well, your armor class has to take a hit. Oh, guess what? Your attack, yeah, you're getting a minus on that. Like if we started doing descriptive damage and explain things in a way, whatever we explain becomes real. And for it to become real, real, and not just fluff, it has to, like if you're limping around, of course your armor class is going to drop down. If you got a weak arm you're trying to swing the weapon with, of course you're getting minuses to your attack. It's not just if you lost a lot of blood and we think you're weak all over. It's minuses to the armor class, minuses to attack, maybe minuses even to your ability to score checks. That's second edition. All right. That's over 2 hours. I hope everyone enjoyed. I love you all.